My great-grandfather said life is on the wire. Everything else is just waiting.
He conquered Niagara Falls.
Raging waters on my left and mist flying in front of me.
And then the Grand Canyon.
It's hard to deny that there is a God when you see the Grand Canyon.
Nik Wallenda shares what it's like to be 1,000 feet in the air on a 2-inch wire.
It's my own quiet time.
On today's 700 Club.
Well, welcome, folks, to this edition of the 700 Club. We're starting a new week, and it's so nice to see Terry again. You've been somewhere.
You. I went back to Wisconsin, visit my mom, and
did you?
Yes, had a great time.
How nice.
Yeah, she's doing well, and so.
Did you see your favorite football team?
Well, I did in airports yesterday. Yes, I was cheering all the way.
They demolished the.
They really did. Well.
That hapless team from Washington.
The Poreskins, you know, they're.
The Poreskins.
Poreskins, but love that back.
Actually, the game we're going to talk about later, one of the most exciting games on television was the San Diego Chargers and the Philadelphia Eagles. You got two Christian quarterbacks, Michael Vick, who's extraordinary, played for Virginia Tech, and he is just fabulous. And
great
Philip
athlete.
Rivers, who we featured, we're going to show more about that, but it was an extraordinary game. And
that was the one I missed, and I heard it was quite the game.
Unbelievable. It was a lot of fun. My wife, for some reason, is a football fan. She's Ohio State, and she just, we had a good time together watching that game.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, major rescues are underway today in the Boulder area in Colorado as massive floods have left entire towns crumbling.
More than 1,000 people are missing, and at least 6 people are reported dead. Operation Blessing is on the ground there, working with local churches to help victims of the flooding. Ephraim Graham has the story.
A clear weather forecast today in Boulder County, Colorado, but floodwaters stretch across 15 counties, displacing more than 11,000 people.
The question I had is how can we ever recover from this? And I know exactly, inch by inch, mile by mile, community by community, they're taking this stuff back.
Cleanup is now underway, but local authorities warn it could take months to repair damaged or totally destroyed roads, highways, and bridges. Operation Blessing teams arrived in Boulder this weekend. They partner with Boulder Valley Christian Church to help victims.
There's homes that are completely destroyed, and there's tons of homes that look fine, but the sewers have backed up, and so you just have streets full of people with flooded basements, and there are thousands of families who've been hit by mudslides, by floodwater coming in, and by sewage coming up into their basements.
Boulder's city sewer system is so overrun with water it can't keep up. Colson's church was able to donate hoses and pumps to some residents to keep the sewage water from filling their basements.
It's just a good reminder that our church family is able to come around people when they need, and I know there's a lot of people in the church who've had flooding also, and to see them stepping out and offering help when their own homes are flooding is, I think, just a really good picture of what Jesus would want us to do for our neighbors.
Operation Blessing purchased cleaning supplies for the Boulder Valley Christian Church so teams could continue to go out and help members of the congregation. OB is partnering with other churches across the flooded region, including LifeBridge Church in Longmont.
This church is just full of activity. This weekend it's had its normal 5 services, but in addition they've opened up their doors and they're reaching out to their communities, their neighbors who are going through such devastating times.
Operation Blessing provided the church with a $10,000 cash grant to help them continue to house evacuees and get the emergency and relief supplies they need to help other victims. Meanwhile, in other parts of Boulder County, more rescue efforts are underway. Many flooded areas have been unreachable because of the weather. Today, the National Guard is encouraging stranded residents to use white sheets, flares, or other reflective items to signal to pilots. Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
It's terrible. We're there with Operation Blessing. By the way, if you want to help, it's the number 800-759-0700. But Disaster Relief Fund. We're out there for these people, and there's a tremendous amount of need. The suffering is great. But you know, Terry, as I was watching that, I'm thinking, what would happen when a big one hits? When you have Yellowstone, for example, is sitting on one of the biggest volcanoes in the world, if not the biggest. And if it explodes, it will just decimate the United States. There are all kinds of space rocks running around right now. The one just recently hit up in the Siberia where there weren't many people, so it didn't get a lot of attention. But if some of these things came and hit us, and then you look at the hurricanes and the damage, we've got massive flooding, for example, right now in Asia, and Japan is experiencing things. Volcano went off in Indonesia. But what would happen if something really big happened? And the suffering would be unimaginable. Yeah. The nice thing is that the Christian people are standing together, the churches are standing together, we're working to help the poor, the needy. And these, we need to continue to do so and be a light in a time of darkness. But we've got a great, wealthy country. But if that got taken away, if some terrorist attack came on us, there's so many horrible things. And only God can protect us. That's what, I mean, we have to understand we're under the mantle of the protection of Almighty God. And it is a major thing to remember, and it's a major thing we don't want to damage. We need to be humble before the Lord, and we need to be pleasing in His sight. Well, the United States, as I mentioned, isn't the only country facing deadly storms. John Jessup has that story now from Washington. Here's John.
Pat, Mexico and Japan have been experiencing violent weather too. In Mexico, 2 different storms have hit the nation on both sides. The remains of Tropical Storm Manuel continue drenching the southwestern Pacific region, causing mudslides and floods. Hurricane Ingrid has hit the opposite coast. The storms are responsible for at least 21 deaths. And in Japan, Typhoon Manyi arrived with 100-mile-per-hour winds and torrential rains. It is damaging homes and flooding parts of the popular tourist destination, Kyoto. Dozens of people have been injured, and 260,000 people have been ordered to evacuate. Some Republicans are criticizing the weekend deal struck by the U.S. and Russia to dismantle Syria's chemical weapons. It calls for Syria to provide an inventory of its stockpile within 1 week. Then the weapons would come under international oversight by November before being destroyed. But Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham call the deal an act of provocative weakness by America. They say it will embolden enemies like Iran. On NBC's Meet the Press, McCain called the agreement meaningless, saying it goes soft on Syria's President Assad, despite tough talk from President Obama.
But the point is, if the agreement had said that there will be the use of force automatically, or the Russians had agreed that they could go under Chapter 7 to the United Nations Security Council, that puts an entirely different cast on it. Right now, it's up to the Russians to decide that. And by the way, they didn't even assign blame for this attack.
And a newspaper in Lebanon reports that Syria has sent equipment that can make chemical weapons to Iran. That comes after a similar story last week where a Syrian opposition leader told CNN that the Assad regime was transporting chemical weapons to Lebanon and Iraq. Secretary of State John Kerry briefed France and Britain today on the plan to end Syria's chemical weapons program. That comes after he met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about the U.S.-Russian agreement. Kerry said the proposal is the biggest effort of its kind.
We hope to put in place through the United Nations what Russia and the United States agreed on, which is the most far-reaching chemical weapons removal effort.
The Syrian regime must be stripped of all its chemical weapons, and that would make our entire region a lot safer.
Kerry added that diplomacy is the preferred path, but the threat of military action remains on the table. Well, Syria's 2-year civil war has killed more than 110,000 people and forced as many as 2 million to flee the country. A small number of those badly wounded are seeking help in Israel. Chris Mitchell brings us that story.
This young Syrian man came to an Israeli hospital after a blast caused massive head wounds. He's one of about 150 who have mysteriously crossed the Syrian border into enemy territory for life-saving medical treatment.
Love your enemies. We have a tragedy in Syria, and hundreds and thousands of people, they have no houses, they are injured, they suffer from cold, from pain, and who take care of for them?
Dr. Masad Barhoum, a Christian Arab, leads the Western Galilee Hospital in Nahariya near the Lebanese border. They've taken in about 70 Syrians.
I still remember the first one who came to our hospital, major injury in his head from blast trauma, and after 10 days, he was walking.
The 54-mile border between Israel and Syria stretches from Mount Hermon through the Golan Heights. How did the wounded cross? Only the Israeli army knows, and they're not telling. The hospital simply receives a call from the army that they're bringing wounded Syrians.
It's typical war injuries, including shrapnel wounds, including bullets, including blast injuries.
Current Syrian patients were afraid to go on camera. Most are men, but 8 children have been treated, including this 3-year-old girl who came alone and unconscious with severe burns to her face.
And she woke up, and she had nobody around. So she was just crying because she was afraid and alone.
Doctors say the Syrians probably would have died without the Israeli care, and the trauma goes beyond their physical wounds.
They are so afraid, so troubled from waking up in an enemy place, in a place they don't know the language.
About half the hospital staff speaks Arabic, and Bahum says that and the love they're shown helps the Syrians calm down.
Just to come, say, be calm, I love you, I'm going to help you. And they have a small smile. They make me my day.
And when a patient is well enough, the Israeli army takes him back to the border. Even though the number is small, Barhum says he and his staff are grateful for the opportunity to help the suffering Syrians. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Nahariya, Israel.
Federal Reserve Vice Chair Janet Yellen could now be the frontrunner to be the new chair of the Federal Reserve after Lawrence Summers withdrew his name from consideration. Summers was considered the leading candidate to replace Ben Bernanke. Some leading Senate Democrats and now more than 450 economists have supported Yellen for the job. Investors are watching closely because of the power of the Fed and the power that it has with financial markets and the dollar. President Obama is expected to announce a nominee as early as next month. Well, some possible progress in the fight against obesity among kids and teens. A new study in the journal Pediatrics finds that they ate more fruits and vegetables and less sweets from 2001 to 2009, along with eating breakfast more often. And they're exercising more. Obesity rates have leveled off but not gone down. Even so, experts say that's an improvement, but they add there's still a long way to go. Well, on a day with some important NFL games, quarterback Phillip Rivers and the San Diego Chargers pulled out a thrilling victory over the Eagles in Philadelphia. Rivers threw 3 touchdown passes, and he led the Chargers down the field with less than 2 minutes left in the game to set up the winning field goal with just 7 seconds left. Rivers told CBN Sports reporter Tom Buring that his priorities are faith, family, and football in that order. And he says that the ultimate purpose in life is to get to heaven and to take as many people as we can. He says it's important to grow in your faith and your relationship with Jesus. And Pat, it's hard not to root for a guy like that.
Well, he's such a handsome fellow. He's got such a smiling face. But boy, I tell you, that was a game and a half. I mean, I'm a great fan of Michael Vick because he grew up not too far from where we are, and he went to Virginia Tech. And he's an incredible quarterback, but I think his total offensive yardage in excess of 500 yards was extraordinary, and Rivers did close to the same thing. So, I mean, you missed a great game.
I'm so sorry.
I mean, it was unbelievable. Anyhow.
I'm glad you caught it.
We're also glad to hear that childhood obesity is going down somewhat, but if parents would just take charge of that. Anyhow, the key, by the way, is something called leptin. Are you aware with leptin?
Well, I've heard you talk about it.
Well, leptin is the hormone that is a fat fighter. And how do you get leptin? One of the ways you do it is to get enough sleep and rest. So if kids aren't sleeping enough, they will automatically get fatter because their body will crave more carbohydrates and things like that. So sleep.
Get your sleep. That's right.
Naps.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Could be a good corporate
I hope
move.
you're taking my advice. All right.
Yes.
What's next?
Well, coming up, meet a new breed of superheroes, thousands of small children who are battling the forces of catastrophic disease with the help of their capes. They're coming your way right after this.
Grace, music is unpredictable.
I know I have what it takes.
The Dove Foundation raves. Grace Unplugged is remarkable and inspiring.
This is not about the music. It's about everything else that goes with it.
Dad, were you watching me?
A moving and meaningful film.
This book, his words shook me. It was like my whole world.
That parents and teens should see together, says Focus on the Family.
What are you gonna do? You're gonna drag her back home?
Yeah, I might. I think maybe you're fighting God. Just stop running.
Grace Unplugged, rated PG. In theaters October 4th.
Tuesday, from Hootie and the Blowfish, Jim Sonnefeld on his band's meteoric rise to the top,
300 fans to 3,000 to 30,000.
And crashing back to earth.
That little angel hopped on my chest and looked down at me and said, "Dad, what are you doing?"
Plus, the man called the total package.
Lex Luger is the heavyweight champion of the world!
Wrestling legend Lex Luger on Tuesday's 700 Club.
A sick child battling for life needs all the help and encouragement if possible, along with the best medical care and support from family and friends. But now children who are seriously ill have access to another weapon to whip disease, a superhero cape, custom made for each one of them. David Brody has this heartwarming story about a woman behind this unique approach to helping troubled, sick little children.
The Man of Steel!
Watch out, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman 2. Time to step aside. The new superheroes are in town. Meet Super Anthony, Super Remedy, Super Mikey, and there are thousands more like them. Young children across America outfitted with superhero capes as they battle the forces of disease. The force behind this league is Robin Rosenberger, owner of Tiny Superheroes in Seattle. Last year, she made a few capes for fun, and then she sent one to a girl with a severe skin condition. Then a few other sick kids, too. And now, the closet cape is full with requests pouring in from almost everywhere. 1,700 kids around the country wear these capes branded with their first initial for the whole world to see. Robin quit her job as a software manager to keep up with the demand.
It's quite life-changing to, first of all, know how many kids are out there that are dealing with something quite extreme. And then it's also just been life-changing to see how a pretty simple piece of fabric can really change the perspective on what's going on.
That piece of simple fabric is important to 7-year-olds like one-of-a-kind Super Cameron.
Super Cameron is amazing. I love him.
He was adopted a few days after his birth, and then at age 2, doctors diagnosed him with restrictive cardiomyopathy, a fatal heart condition. Without a heart transplant, soon he'll die.
The issue is that they go into sudden cardiac death. So it's something where you have no warning. It just all of a sudden the heart stops.
He is now first on the transplant list, and that means carrying a pager at all times, ready and hopeful that it will bring good news. Why is it going to beep?
Because they might have a heart.
Cameron is no doubt deserving of his superhero cape. One time during a 3-day hospital stay, doctors took 16 tubes of blood, but Cameron was concerned with normal kid stuff.
Every time the doctor comes in, I ask her, can I have a bicycle? Can I have a bicycle?
Those times in the hospital did make him think of what he wants to be when he grows up.
I want to be a doctor.
Why do you want to be a doctor?
Because I want to help other kids to be healthy.
Maybe helping others will come soon for Super Cameron, but right now he just can't do normal kid stuff. And that's why his cape is so important to him.
It helps with his confidence. Like when he's outside playing with his friends and they want to like go play ball, he's like, hey, let's play superheroes, and I got a cape, and so we can do this and that. And it kind of keeps things localized, and it keeps things at his level and gives him some control over his life.
Cameron's family knows that ultimately God is in control of it all.
If we didn't believe that God was going to take us through this, then I don't know how we do it.
Cameron's mom set up a Facebook page called Psalm 147:3, the verse in the Bible about how God heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds.
It just seemed so fitting because Cameron's heart is broken and he's going to have to get a lot of wounds in order to fix his heart. So that verse just really spoke to me.
And as Cameron prayerfully waits for his new heart, he plays with his sidekick brother, Spencer, and he reads up on his Bible.
I got a huge Bible.
You got a huge Bible?
Yeah.
In the meantime, Cameron is busy raising some money for those hefty medical bills. $5 a piece for a Cameron's Hope bracelet.
Here you are, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The beauty behind the Tiny Superheroes effort is that this is not just about sewing capes. It's about self-esteem, empowerment, and working together with families to raise cash, awareness, and hopefully medical help for the kids.
These kids aren't sad and feeling sorry for themselves or weak in any way. They are more joyful and more strong and more brave than I ever was at their age with no health problems.
And now they've got their superhero cape ready to conquer the battles ahead. David Brody, CBN News in Seattle, Washington.
That is so wonderful. You know, when you're a little kid, I had a little Mountie, Canadian Royal Mounties, and I had a little Mountie costume. You know? And then you want to be Tom Mix.
You become.
You have a little cowboy pistol, you strap on, and it kind of does something to a child to take on the role of one of those superheroes. Praise the Lord. That is
what a great
wonderful
idea.
It is a wonderful. But I mean, it does something. It's tangible, and yet it has intangible benefits beyond measure. Okay, we've got some exciting more things coming up, and Terry's going to tell us about it.
Well, up next, he planned to become a pediatrician, but he couldn't give up his passion for performing.
I was walking across Niagara Falls, and there was raging waters on my left, and below me waters were boiling underneath, and mist flying in front of me. I focused on the other end, just very, very similar to our walk with Christ.
Nik Wallenda talks about what keeps him walking on the wire after this.
I'm only in my 60s. I've got a nice long life ahead, big plans. So when I found out Medicare doesn't pay all my medical expenses, I got a Medicare supplement insurance plan.
If you're eligible for Medicare, you may know it only covers about 80% of your Part B medical expenses. The rest is up to you. Call and find out about an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan insured by United Healthcare Insurance Company. Like all standardized Medicare supplement plans, it could save you thousands in out-of-pocket costs. Call now to request your free decision guide.
I've been with my doctor for 12 years. Now I know I'll be able to stick with them.
You'll be able to visit any doctor or hospital that accepts Medicare patients. Plus, there are no networks, and you never need a referral. See why millions of people have already enrolled in the only Medicare supplement insurance plans endorsed by AARP. Don't wait. Call now.
Admit it, you never thought you'd see this day. The day you could walk without shooting pain in your back. All because you took the first step and had surgery at Laser Spine Institute, the experts in outpatient minimally invasive neck and back surgery. All it takes is an incision less than 1 inch and you'll be up and walking within a few hours of surgery, and there is no lengthy recovery. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with spinal stenosis, bulging or herniated disc, sciatica, or other chronic conditions, call today for a free MRI review.
I woke up in recovery and there was absolutely no pain at all. It's amazing. Now I can get on the bike, I can go anywhere. Laser Spine Institute gave me my life back. I'm still going strong today because of them.
If you've been told you might need neck or back surgery, call 1-855-940-STEP for a free MRI review.
Go from a life of pain to a lifetime of living. Laser Spine Institute, the leader in minimally invasive spine surgery.
Last June, Nik Wallenda's tightrope walk across the Grand Canyon on Discovery Channel broke network records with 13 million viewers. If you were one of them, you know what a nail-biting, heart-stopping experience it was. In fact, that broadcast is now up for an Emmy for Top TV Moments of the Year. All Wallenda's feats are amazing, especially since he once planned to be a doctor. Take a look.
My great-grandfather said life is on the wire. Everything else is just waiting.
Nik Wallenda's life is always about keeping balance. Nik faces unique challenges as a normal guy with a not-so-normal job.
It's hard for people to relate to somebody who walks on a cable the size of a nickel 1,000 feet in the air, and I understand that.
Nik's family has been performing professionally for more than 200 years. His great-grandfather, Carl, brought Highwire performing into the family in the early 1900s and worked with Ringling Brothers and Barnum & Bailey's Circus for decades.
He created the 7-person pyramid on the wire and walked over almost every stadium in the United States at that time. He really created the legacy, and I really kind of live in the shadows of him. Everything I do is kind of to pay tribute to him, because I wouldn't be where I am if he didn't pave that road and pass on that mantra that I live by, which is never give up.
Nik was brought up performing, but he didn't always plan to follow in his family's footsteps.
As I was growing up, my parents were really struggling to make ends meet, and I saw that. And my parents really said, you know, this isn't a career path you should take. Go to school, study, go to college, and go a different direction. And I really focused on that, and I got accepted to go to Southeastern Bible College in Lakeland, Florida. I planned on going there and then eventually going off to become a pediatrician. But I struggled because I had so much passion for performing.
Then Nik's family was invited to perform a 7-person pyramid for the first time since it fell in 1962, and 2 family members were killed.
I thought it was going to be my final goodbye. I thought I was going to perform in Detroit, and we can at least kind of regain this legacy and show that our family can still do this stuff.
The performance was successful, and the extensive media coverage got Nik's attention.
I decided, you know what, I am going to carry this on, but I'm going to carry it on in a big way. And I'm going to make sure to do big events that the whole world knows about. That was really my mindset from that point on.
Nik went on to set 8 world records, but it wasn't always easy.
There were still always struggles, and I've been extremely blessed since then and had some amazing opportunities. Of course, Niagara Falls was one of those huge ones. One of the most memorable walks of my career was going back to San Juan, Puerto Rico, where my great-grandfather did lose his life in 1978, and recreate that walk.
Nik was raised in a Christian home, and his faith has always been a part of his life.
There's no question in my mind that God has laid these desires in my heart to carry on this family industry. I think that God has given me a very unique talent, and I can use that to bring glory to His name. There was actually a headline in a paper not too long ago, the Tim Tebow of the tightrope, which is really cool. He used that platform of playing football and was really able to touch a lot of people's lives. And I consider that I have that, I have an amazing platform as well.
Nik trains hard for each performance and says that he doesn't consider his feats death-defying.
I don't see what I do as being more dangerous than a police officer. What I do is extremely calculated. I don't think God holds me on the wire as I'm walking across, but God's given me a unique talent, and it's up to me whether I train properly for that. But I also have trained my entire life to catch that wire. If I were to fall, gravity pulls you down. I train for the high winds, I train on a cable the same length, and overtrain. I know that I've walked a wire in training in 90-mile-an-hour winds before, and that didn't blow me off. We have rescue crews standing by that could be at me anywhere on that wire within 60 seconds to grab me off and pull me to safety. And it's important I always maintain that high level of respect for what I do and the dangers involved with it.
In fact, Nik says that his biggest concern during his walk across Niagara Falls was the tether he was made to wear.
It was something that I was very unaccustomed with, unfamiliar with, and am very uncomfortable with. The tether can actually cause you to trip up. It could tangle around your neck, it could tangle around you never know what's going to happen. My great-grandfather had an older brother that fell into a net and was bounced out and killed. And his mindset, he's passed it on to next generations, was if you have a net or a tether, your mindset is you can use that. So you become complacent, you become relaxed.
Nik's immediate family is a big part of his life. He and his wife, Wallenda, both come from a long line of performers and have 3 children together.
It's so important to me that every time before I do any of these big events, I get in a circle and pray with my family. And I always say, give God the glory. Let God get the glory out of what I'm doing. That is very, very important to me, that people, they don't praise Nik Wallenda, but they praise God for these amazing abilities. And I think that's part of showcasing like the Grand Canyon. To me, myself, it's hard to deny that there is a God when you see the Grand Canyon. That's my heart, and that's why I like to show these amazing places off around the world. I would walk across Niagara Falls, the Grand Canyon, if no one was there. It's about fulfilling a dream. It's important to me that people are inspired by what I do, that they see it as an inspiration that their dreams are possible too.
It all may seem a bit nerve-wracking, but Nik says his most peaceful moments have been on the wire.
While I'm on that wire, people can't understand, how could you be peaceful? Well, when I'm praising God, there's no one else to talk to, and it's my own quiet time. You know, there's that prayer closet. Well, the wire often is and has been my prayer closet.
Nik has written a book about his experiences entitled Balance. He says that it's often difficult in life to keep that balance, but it helps to focus on what's important.
I was walking across Niagara Falls and there was raging waters on my left, and below me waters were boiling underneath and mist flying in front of me. But instead of focusing on all those problems that I had around me, I focused on the other end, just very, very similar to our walk with Christ. It's not always rosy, it's not always easy. Life isn't always, a dream. But with God, all things are possible, and there is that light at the end of the tunnel.
An amazing guy, an amazing family, really. You can help Nik Wallenda win an Emmy for Top TV Moments of the Year. To vote for Skywire Live with Nik Wallenda, just log on to CBN.com. Go to the section I Saw It on the 700 Club. But you need to hurry because the voting ends today, September 16th. So please go vote for Nik today. Great opportunity. What an amazing guy.
I stand in awe of him. But he started, the thing that he started on, one that was about 2 feet above the ground, and learned how to walk that wire. But
I know, but there's so many elements you can't control that are involved in that.
He trains at 90 mile an hour wind. I mean, I just, but to go across it, and he didn't like the tether got in his way. So he didn't have a tether going across the Grand Canyon. And you see that vast, oh man. Well, don't even tell me about it, but I mean, he's in a class all by himself.
Really is.
But,
he really is. It'd be
by all
wonderful
means,
if he
vote
won
for
that
him.
award.
He ought to get an award for everything he does. Okay, we got some questions.
We do. It's time for email. Let's bring it on for a few minutes. This is Shirley Pat, who says, is it appropriate for a married man to chat with single women that he knows or his ex-girlfriends on Facebook? I think it's inappropriate, but my husband said I should trust him.
Your husband's wrong. I think he's got an emotional connection with these women. And it's kind of an emotional adultery. And I think you're married to him, and he owes you the allegiance of single-hearted devotion. Now, I know, he's got friends. You don't want to keep a man from having friends of the opposite sex, because we, in a work environment, we've got so many people that we work with who are of the opposite sex, and we need to be friends, and we need to be cordial, and there needs to be hugs among the staff and all that kind of stuff. But to have Facebook chats, to spend a long time in intimate relations, will tell me about how your day and all that stuff. I mean, that's reserved for the spouse.
Yeah, I agree. This is Denise, who says, can you please tell me if it's a sin to watch horror/scary movies?
I don't know if it's a sin. I think it's stupid. Really,
Some people really love that. I guess the energy that pulls up in you out of fear. I don't like it either.
When I was a little boy, they took me to a movie, it was supposed to be a comedy about an octopus, and it scared me to death. So, I don't know. Have you had that feeling when you ride fast in a car and you go over a bump and you're sort of airborne, and that you come down, is that feeling in your stomach?
Yes.
It's kind of excitement, which you get on a roller coaster, and I think those scary movies are that way, but it'll give you nightmares. Is it a sin? Listen, here's the deal. If you feel it's a sin, it's a sin. If you don't have any problem, then in this case, watch away. But the Bible says nothing about scary movies. All right.
This is Clark, Pat, who says, I watched your son and a woman on TV telling people that God was healing a certain condition that people in the audience were suffering from. Then they discussed cases where viewers had written in to say they had been healed, thus apparently proving that they have the ability to get God to heal people during the show. Is that power only available to them during the show? If not, are they spending every waking moment healing people? If not, that's just plain wrong.
I'll have to ask my son, why don't you just get on and walk through hospitals and heal people? Listen, when we're praying together, the word of knowledge, the Lord just shows us what he is doing at some point of time, not what we're doing. It's his due. But read Corinthians, 13th chapter and 14th chapter of 1 Corinthians and see what God says about the manifestations of the Holy Spirit. This is a manifestation of the Holy Spirit. I do not believe in, quote, a resident gift to heal. I don't think that's biblical. I think it is a word of knowledge. It is gifts of healing. But, if we had the power to heal anybody, then you should go through the hospital and clean out every ward and every room and heal everybody there. But that's not the case. So are you that woman on television that the man refers to?
I fear I might be.
All right.
Really, I think if someone has not experienced that before, it must be confusing. And, leading this person to go back and read Corinthians, I think, is the appropriate thing.
Plural gifts of healing. And it's like Santa Claus. He's got a pack on his back and he has gifts and he's passing these gifts out. But they come from God. Only God can heal people. Only God. Jesus Christ, the Son of God and the Father, can heal. And the word of knowledge, essentially, we're merely reciting what God himself is doing, okay?
This is Uriel, who says, were there other people created when Adam was created? Where did Cain's wife come? And what was Cain come from? And what was Cain's mark?
Well, he had a mark that said you're not supposed to hurt him, and we're not sure what that mark was, but it was God.
Something visible.
It was something they could see and know that God had placed his sign upon him. Everybody wonders about this. Adam and Eve had children, more than one child, and there's no question he had to marry his sister. There weren't any other people. In those days, the genetic strain was absolutely pure, and the laws against incest had not been established. And so in this case, they had to be marriage between brothers and sisters, and then before long between cousins, and then down the line it went. But one of the reasons where these laws of incest are so important is because you can get recessive genes that will be manifested when you have close blood relationship, and it will lead to defects in the unborn children. And you'll have mental sickness, and you have little pockets of people up in the mountains and so forth who do a lot of interbreeding, and then you've got all kinds of mental problems because of the genetic thing. But it's a sin, but that wasn't established to the law of Moses much later. Okay.
Okay, this is Nancy, who says, when Jesus exorcised demons, why wouldn't he offer the salvation prayer first for a chance at redemption? And if the demon refused, then cast him out. We all are supposed to get second chances and more.
The devil doesn't get a second chance. Here's the deal. Satan could see the power of God. He was the anointed cherub that covered. He covered the very holiness of God. He walked in the stones of fire. He was on the holy mountain with God. He deliberately, despite what he knew, chose to rebel against God Almighty. And he knows exactly who God is. He knows exactly. There's none of this business about we see through a glass darkly. He saw directly face to face, and the demons know exactly what they're doing. And no, Jesus didn't have to have them say the sinner's prayer. Would you bow your head and say this word? No, they were inhabiting this man and destroying him. And they begged to be allowed to go into a herd of pigs. And so he said, okay, go.
This is Brenda Pat, who says, my pastor left his wife and children and married another woman who left her family. He apologized to the church, but never apologized to the family that he left behind. As husband and wife, this couple are now behind the pulpit. They have been called prophets, or there have been prophets who said they have a calling of ministry together. How can that be when they're both adulterers? I find this very confusing.
Well, you shouldn't be confused. They're in gross sin, and the Bible says that an elder should have a good reputation in the community unless he fall into the snare of the devil. And I think that this man is flaunting what he's done to break up two homes. And he broke up his own home, he broke up somebody else's home, and the two things, and
it continues to lead.
All this junk about we're in love and God spoke to us. Nonsense. That's sin. It's adultery. It's wrong. And he should, be put into discipline. And I don't think he should ever have been returned to the pulpit, because God forgives sin, and so maybe on down the road. But there should have been a long process. But I don't think he belongs to any church, so there's no discipline, and he just does what he wants to do. And if people are stupid enough to go along with him, well, that's the way it is. But we have many false prophets in the world, and that's the way it is. But we need to have a model of integrity, and the man of God standing in the pulpit should be that model.
Yeah, well, the scripture's pretty clear about that.
Oh, my goodness gracious, yes. I mean, that is gross sin. And he shouldn't be up there preaching. But, of course, David committed adultery. David had somebody killed to cover it up. I mean, he read the 51st Psalm. Against thee and thee only have I sinned. I'm done, and this is what's wrong in them. Restore unto me the joy of my salvation. I'm sorry. His life was full, and yet he had terrible problems in his family. His son.
That were a consequence of
he had
sin.
A murder. He had incest and rape. He had a rebellion by his own son, who in turn was killed, Absalom. I mean, it was a nasty mess. Mm-hmm. David paid for it, but he still was a man after God's own heart, because his heart was tender. He sinned. He was sorry. He'd done something awful, but he asked God to forgive him, and God is a forgiving Lord. Okay?
That's all the time we have for questions today, but we thank you for sending those in, and we look forward to hearing from more of you. Well, still ahead, the Emmy Award-winning news correspondent who was a trailblazer for Native Americans. Hattie Kauffman tells one of the greatest stories of her career, her own struggle to survive.
Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you. SocialSecurity211.com. At SocialSecurity211.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other loopholes we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At SocialSecurity211.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says this website is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to SocialSecurity211.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's SocialSecurity211.com. SocialSecurity211.com.
Welcome back to Washington for this CBN News Break. The new president of the Southern Baptist Convention's Public Policy Organization says the Bible Belt is collapsing. The Reverend Russell Moore says Bible-believing Christians increasingly will be forced to choose whether they will follow God or the nation's leaders. And he says we are not Americans first. We belong to another kingdom, and we will stand and speak for that kingdom. Moore is the head of the SBC's Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission. More than 2,300 children attended a Superbook event in Costa Rica. The first Superbook Club for kids was also launched at a local church. Children watched the Jonah episode, sang along with the salvation poem, and prayed the salvation prayer. One girl said she liked Superbook because, quote, we learned good things like God's mercy. You can find out more about what CBN is doing around the world by logging on to cbn.com/international. Pat and Terry will be back right after this.
Jack and I are having the time of our lives. The kids are on their own, and now we're back in control of our time and the way we spend our money.
That's why Consumer Cellular is the perfect cell phone company for us. We get great service, and compared to our old plan, we're saving a ton every month.
Consumer Cellular is the wireless provider for people who want affordable service without the contracts.
Listen, I don't think I'm cheap. I only
want to pay for what I need.
So what do you pay a month for Consumer Cellular?
My bill can be as low as $10, $15 a month.
Wow. But we can change our plan anytime. So even those months we use it a lot, we're always getting the best price.
Try Consumer Cellular risk-free for 30 days with free activation, a $35 value, and free shipping. Consumer Cellular is the exclusive wireless provider for AARP members. Ask about your special discounts.
Call Consumer Cellular at 1-800-730-5103. Go online to consumercellulartv.com or visit a Sears store today.
Tuesday. From Hootie and the Blowfish, Jim Sonnefeld on his band's meteoric rise to the top,
300 fans to 3,000 to 30,000.
And crashing back to earth.
That little angel hopped on my chest and looked down at me and said, "Dad, what are you doing?"
Plus, the man called the total package.
Lex Luger is the heavyweight champion of the world!
Wrestling legend Lex Luger on Tuesday's 700 Club. To see this week's top on-demand videos, go to cbn.com.
Hattie Kauffman is a seasoned broadcast professional, a journalist who's also a pioneer in television reporting. To see her now, you would never guess that she was once a starving, neglected child.
Hattie Kauffman is an Emmy Award-winning journalist. She made history in 1989 as the first Native American newscaster. Hattie's humble beginnings started on the Nez Perce Indian Reservation in Idaho. In her book, Falling into Place, Hattie shares how she overcame the wounds from abuse, alcoholism, and a life-shattering event.
Cost of a home is $3 million. Please welcome to the 700 Club, Hattie Kauffman. Hattie, it's so nice to have you here.
It is great. It's wonderful to be here.
This is a wonderful book. Falling into Place is Hattie's recent book. Hattie, talk a little bit about your childhood. People looking at you today, I would think, would be stunned to know that you really came through some hard times as a child.
I did, but look at where we are. You're on the set, you put on the nice face, you put on makeup, you put on all this glamorous look, and I've been doing that for decades, and then these are like revealing the secrets behind those early years. And I want to honor my parents and not say that they were terrible. They went through a terrible time. And that left 7 of us kids often alone. And picture 7 kids in Seattle, and we are trying to make it on our own, basically, because one or the other parent is gone. And sometimes there's nothing to eat. You know, one day the furnace doesn't come on because nobody paid the bill.
And it's freezing cold.
The lights don't work. And the worst is when the water is shut off. But we got by. We struggled, but we got by. And we developed some spunk, I think, that came from that.
Well, there's always something tenacious that comes up in your character from experiences like that. You had an Aunt Teddy that had an impact on your life. Talk about her.
Yeah, she was a light. You know how we are called to be a light. And she was a light in our life. She was the one who taught me the 23rd Psalm. I had no idea what I was saying. I didn't know what it meant. And she would have me repeat after her, "The Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd." And so she was somebody that we sought. And there is actually an incident that I describe in my book when my older brother and sister take all of the others, there's 7 of us, and we travel across town trying to get to Aunt Teddy's. Well, we've been alone for a few days, and I don't really know. Maybe I was 5 at the time. And so here you have 7 kids, basically crossing a city, taking 2 buses. We get on the wrong bus, we're lost, we're walking for miles like this little scraggly group. And to me, I really see it as a metaphor of how, we are lost and we are trying to find the light. And so that's why I put it in my book.
What were some of the struggles that became resident in your heart because of that initially in your life?
Well, I think, one, children of alcoholics learn to say everything's fine. Everything's fine. So you're covering up all the time. 2, I became a real workaholic. I was going to make it on my own. 3, I think you grab onto the material and think, if I just have this, if I have that, I'll be okay. And you're never really satisfied. That was what happened to me anyway.
So Aunt Teddy had this light that really was evident to you, but you really didn't want what she had to offer.
Oh, not by the time I was a teenager. No, then I totally rejected her meanly. I'm half American Indian. This would have been, maybe early 1970. And I just decided, that's the white man's God, and we're Indian, and why are you telling me this? And because my Aunt Teddy was not the American Indian side. She was my father's sister. Yes, my mother was full-blooded Nez Perce. My father was not. He was white American. And I was angry. I was angry about everything that had happened and in our lives. And I took it out on an easy target. You know, it's you guys.
Yeah.
And,
and your God.
And your God. And I don't need any help.
Then you got doors opened for you and you wound up getting into a broadcast career. How did that happen?
I was at the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis, and I don't know if you remember the American Indian Movement, 1973, the takeover of Wounded Knee, all kinds of things were happening. And somebody from the radio station came to the American Indian student office and said, we'd like somebody to do Indian news. You know, and there was Dennis Banks, Clyde Belcourt, all these big tough guys to go interview. And I raised my hand and I volunteered, and I was on the air the next day.
God had a plan.
God had a plan. Yeah.
So how did the light of what Aunt Teddy tried to share with you, the truth and the hope that was available to you, finally become a part of your life?
It took so long, decades. You know, I was 52 when I came to the Lord, and it was really because of something that happened in my life. I had a 17-year marriage that collapsed suddenly and left me sort of reeling. And what I describe in my book, and I don't really want it to be a misery book of this childhood or a divorce book, but it's more of what happens when what you think you've built your life on isn't solid.
Crumbles, yeah.
Yes, we're sitting here on a set. You know, it's not real. What if it all fell apart?
Yes.
It's not real. And that's what I had built my life on. And so I'm 52 and I'm going through this divorce and I'm alone, and you get bad advice from people out there in the world. As I say in my book, I have women saying, you know, go have an affair before you reconcile. I mean, it's bad advice. Go buy a new dress. Luckily, somebody said to me, Hattie, read Isaiah 54. And I had to go find a Bible. And there's a wording in a few lines in Isaiah 54 that says, let God be your husband. And it just really, I heard it.
Spoke to your heart, yeah.
And I began to remember Aunt Teddy. And I began to think about the prayers that I said as a child. And I came to the Lord. And my life has been completely different since then.
These journeys are so, I guess, specific to each of us that we take along the way. You were a trailblazer for Native Americans in journalism, and I'm sure in many ways, as you reflect back now on what you write so eloquently about in your book, God used every one of those struggles, every one of those losses, every one of those challenges to give you what it took to be successful in what you're doing. How do you see that pattern?
You know, it's funny. Harry Smith, who was a longtime anchor at CBS and now at NBC, used to call me an empath. That was the name of that character on an old Star Trek show where she'd talk to you and she immediately knew what you were feeling. He said, Hattie's a natural empath. For some reason, every time she interviews somebody, she goes right there. And I think it's because probably my life, I had been right there. You know, I had known suffering. You know, you didn't see it, but I had known it, and I was able to connect with people. And I think also, even before I came to Christ, I used to say, please help me tell this story. I mean, I didn't know what I was praying to. I didn't know what I was doing, but I would say that. And I think maybe that came through in some of my work.
What is your life today?
I've remarried to a wonderful man I met through church. I'm involved in Bible study fellowship, which I completely...
That's a great
It's a great
program.
thing. It's, let me see, I write. I will be hoping that this book that I've written will reach out to some people who may not be believers, but will find something in there, because it speaks to everything that we go through as people. What is home?
Yeah.
Where do you get your strength?
They say that our life experiences either make us bitter or better, and Hattie's have made her better. Hattie's memoir is called Falling into Place. It's available wherever books are sold. A wonderful story of life visited by God and formed and shaped by Him. Thank you for being with us. It's great to have you here and to meet you. Pat?
What an amazing young lady, still young. Well, up next, see how a bolt of cloth becomes an answer to prayer for a widow and her children who live in Egypt.
Did your magic phone service promise you everything but come up empty? Sign up for Basic Talk. Unlimited calling for only $9.99 a month with no annual contract. It's a home phone service you can count on. It's not magic, it's Basic Talk. Call, click, or go to Walmart today.
Hi, my name is Breda. I'm just your typical 9-year-old. I love singing, dancing, reading, discovering the simple truth. My grandpa says you're never too young or old to learn the value of a dog. He taught me the true value of this paper dog. You see this little gold coin? It says $1 on it. But guess what? That was a long time ago. Today, this gold dollar is worth over 100 paper dollars. This paper dollar is now only worth 1 penny compared to America's former money, the gold dollar. My grandpa says the only money worth saving today is real money, gold or silver coins. He's pretty smart. How our paper dollars lost their value, he says. It's all explained in a new book, The Great Debasement. It's easy and fun to read. If you call the number on the screen, I will send you a copy totally free. Next time, I will explain the simple truth about money.
Well, you're watching the 700 Club. Don't miss wrestling legend Lex Luger. Are you familiar with wrestling? You're a football fan.
Well, I have boy children.
Well, the boy children may know of Lex. Well, he's retired now, I think, but he's quite a hunk. But anyhow, we'll talk to him tomorrow. Well, a widow named Almina was on the verge of desperation. She had no way to support herself and her 2 children, but all that changed with a simple bolt of cloth.
Ever since her husband died 9 years ago, Almina has been the sole provider for her children. She does everything she can to take good care of her kids, but it's hard.
4 months after my husband passed away, things got very difficult financially. We didn't have enough money to buy a loaf of bread, and my children were crying from hunger. It was terrible. My children and I sat and wept.
She has a sewing machine and wants to make things to sell, but she spends everything she has on necessities like food.
No one helped me except God. The church gave me a machine so I could make things to sell, but I didn't have enough money to buy the fabric.
This fabric cost about $100. Almina could never have afforded to buy it on her own, but when we give this to her, she's going to be able to start her own business and support her children.
As soon as she got the cloth, Almina started making bed sheets.
I'm very careful when I sew, and I do quality work. I take the sheets and blankets I make and sell them to relatives, neighbors, and loved ones, all for good prices. That way, people know they're getting something good for their money.
She takes pride in her work and is doing a great job managing her income. She has more than enough to feed her children good meals, and now they're all very happy.
I'm very happy to have work so I can take care of my children. When I see them happy, it makes me happy too. Thank you so much for caring. May God bless you and reward you.
Well, you can touch the lives of people. You can join the 700 Club. 65 cents a day and you can change the world. 65 cents. Less than the price of a can of soda pop. 65 cents, and you could make somebody's life happy. So call us and say you can count on me as a 700 Club member. Well, on tomorrow's program, the drummer for Hootie and the Blowfish talks about the radical conversion he had. And today we leave you with these words from Matthew 21. And all things, whatever you ask in prayer, believing, you will receive. Receive that. Well, for Terry and all of us, this is Pat Robertson, and we wish you a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Hi, this is Pat Robertson. This is an important time in the history of America. It's an important time in the history of CBN. And what you do is so very important now. But we've got to get the gospel out here in America. We've got to help the poor and the needy, feed those who are hungry, clothe those who are naked, bring medical attention to those who are suffering, and more than anything, bring hope to those who are without hope throughout the world. So your 700 Club membership makes a huge difference. And I ask you to go to your phone and call. If you haven't already called in, we appreciate what you've done so much. So don't slack. We don't want our hands to be empty. We want to say, Lord, here are those who have come to you because of my labors. Telephones are available, toll-free line, and we just thank God for each one of you. So don't hesitate to call and do it now.